Hello, my dear brothers and sisters, and I warmly welcome you all to the new episode. Before we move on with the story, please subscribe to the channel and make sure to click the bell icon so that you receive notifications for every video of mine. Now, let's begin today's story. Over the past 15 to 20 years, Noida and Greater Noida have developed very rapidly. The surrounding villages have also joined the race of development. The village of Basark in the Greater Noida region, which was once just a village 20 years ago, is now better off than many small towns. Here, a township called Gore City 2 has been established. Prashant Kumar lived in flat number A168 of Galaxy North Avenue 2 in Gore City 2. 2 floors below his flat was the apartment of his friend, Rupendra Singh Chandel. Prashant and Rupendra shared a deep friendship. It was Sunday, a holiday, on April 28, 2019. That day, around 6:30 in the evening, Prashant was at home, getting ready to go to the mall with his wife and children. At that moment, he received a phone call on his mobile from Omveer, who was Rupendra's brother-in-law. Omveer lived in flat number 244 in the same society. After listening to what Omveer had to say on the phone, Prashant became quite worried. Omveer had mentioned that Rupendra had left home in the afternoon in his white Fad Figo car. He needed some money, so he had taken his wife's jewelry from home to pawn at PC Jewelers in Ghaziabad. However, even after 3.5 hours had passed, he still had not returned home. Omveer also stated that both he and Rupendra's wife Amrita had tried calling him several times, but the calls were not being answered on the other end. This was something that could worry anyone. After all, Rupendra was a very good friend of Prashant, so Prashant quickly rushed down the stairs and reached Rupendra's flat, where Omveer was already present. The anxious look on Amrita's face clearly showed how disturbed she was. When Prashant asked her about Rupendra, she repeated exactly what Omveer had told her on the phone a short while ago. In a nervous voice, she said, "He went taking the gold jewelry. It's been so long. He neither returned nor answers his phone. I'm extremely worried. You know how rough this area is. Every day there are incidents of robbery, looting, and who knows what else. I hope nothing has happened to him. I wish you all could go out of the society and look for him in the nearby area." As she spoke, tears welled up in Amrita's eyes. "Don't worry, Babiji, nothing will happen. We'll immediately inform the police about Rupendra," Prashant said. "No, Prashant Bhai, we shouldn't inform the police just yet. I want a few of us to search for Rupendra first. If he isn't found, then we'll notify the police," she replied. Omveer then interjected, "Yes, that's fine too. Let's search for him first." After this discussion, Prashant and Omveer proceeded to the society office. There, Omveer took Sumit, who works as the society guard and operator, with him, and Prashant also brought along his friends, Sanjeev and Robin, from the society. Then, all of them set out in a car to search for Rupendra in the surrounding areas. They drove for about 1 hour, covering roughly 6 to 7 kilometers, but they neither spotted Rupendra's car anywhere nor heard of any accident in the area. With no new leads, they decided to return to the society to deliberate on their next steps, and by that time it was already 10 p.m. Not far from Gore City, there is the Brahma Temple. As they were passing by the temple in the car, Sumit suddenly shouted, "Sir, stop the car, stop the car. What happened, brother? Is something wrong?" Prashant, who was driving, slowed the car down and asked Sumit, "What is it?" Sumit pointed toward the service road near the temple and said, "Sir, look, there's a white car parked over there. I think it might be Mr. Rupendra's." Everyone turned their eyes toward the service road, and indeed, a white car was seen parked there. Prashant immediately moved his car forward, and after a short distance, taking a U-turn, he drove that car onto the service road where the white car was parked. As soon as he got close, Prashant noticed that it was indeed that Fad Figo car, and its number was UP55J996, the same as Rupendra's car. Upon reading the car number, Prashant, Omveer, and the others quickly got out of the car and peered inside through the window. They let out a scream because, on the driver's seat, Rupendra's body lay covered in blood. Prashant and Omveer opened the door and shook Rupendra's body. "It seems that some thugs looted and killed Rupendra," said Omveer as he clutched his head. The search that Prashant and his companions had embarked on was over, They did not find Rupendra alive, but they certainly found his body. How did he die? Was it an accident? It was up to the police to figure that out. Therefore, around 10:30, Prashant called the police control room to report the incident. In just a few moments, a PCR vehicle arrived at the scene. By that time, Omveer had already informed his wife and Rupendra's wife about the incident. Some other people from Gore City, having received news of Rupendra's body, also arrived at the scene. The police officers who arrived in the PCR vehicle inspected the area and then reported the incident to the local Bishrock police station. The SHO of Bishrock police station, Manoj Pathak, along with his police team, reached the scene. After investigating the area, CO Piyush Kumar Singh, Vineet Jaiswal, and the forensic team were informed, and in just a few minutes, the forensic team and police officers reached the scene of the incident. During the investigation, the police did not find any evidence at the scene that would indicate whether Rupendra's murder was carried out for the purpose of robbery or because he opposed a robbery. The most significant fact was that his murder took place about 2.5 kilometers away from his residence. Rupendra's wife, Amrita, had also arrived at the scene with her 6-year-old son, Ayushman. One can understand the impact of grief and shock on a wife after her husband's death by looking at Amrita's lament. Omveer's wife, Shika, who was Amrita's sister-in-law, was seen crying along with several other women and people, consoling Amrita. The forensic team had collected various samples from inside the deceased's car, including fingerprints and other types of traces. After wrapping up the on-site procedures, Inspector Manoj Pathak sent Rupendra's body for a post-mortem at the district hospital that very night. He also instructed the deceased's relatives to come to the Bishrock police station the next morning to file a written complaint to register an FIR regarding the case. However, surprisingly, neither Rupendra's wife nor his brother-in-law Omveer showed up at the station the next morning. Rupendra's friend Prashant did arrive at the Bishrock station with some friends. When Inspector Pathak asked him why none of Rupendra's family members had come to file the FIR, Prashant explained that he had urged Rupendra's family to go to the station, but they said, "What will filing a report do? It won't bring Rupendra back to life." Although the relatives' response was extremely astonishing, the police need only a complaint to proceed with an investigation. Any person directly or indirectly connected to the incident can file one. Accordingly, Inspector Pathak took a written complaint from Prashant and registered a case under Section 302 Murder of the Indian Penal Code on April 29, 2019 and began the investigation. After the case was registered, the police had Rupendra's body autopsied on the same day and handed it over to his family. By that time, besides Rupendra's father and brother, other relatives as well as Amrita's kin had already arrived. From early morning, Inspector Pathak accelerated the investigation into Rupendra's murder. He formed a police team under the leadership of SI Umesh and Virpal, and also assigned constables Sudhir and Sanjeev from the SP's team the task of retrieving call details from all the mobile phones of the deceased's family members and placing their phones under surveillance. The police team interrogated Rupendra's relatives. Additionally, they began reviewing the CCTV footage from the cameras installed in Galaxy Society. After examining the call details, CCTV footage, and other evidence, the police arrested Omveer on May 1st. Omveer was the deceased's brother-in-law. When Inspector Manoj Pathak brought him to the station and questioned him rather sternly, Omveer quickly confessed upon seeing the evidence the police had against him. When the truth behind Rupendra's murder emerged before the police, everyone was shocked, because Omveer had carried out the murder in collusion with his society's guard Sumit and another accomplice, Bule. A police team arrested the two on the same day. Upon interrogating Omveer and his two accomplices, the story of Rupendra's murder unfolded as follows. Rupendra Singh Chandel, 33 years old, originally from the village Mahari in Mahoba district of Uttar Pradesh, was a resident there. His father, Arjun Singh Chandel, is a head constable in the PSC and is currently stationed in Prayagraj. Rupendra's elder brother, Raghavendra, who is married and lives in the village, is studying law. Rupendra also had a younger brother Rupendra, who lives in Delhi, had completed his MBA and after finishing his studies, in 2012 he got a job at the biscuit company Hinge Private Limited in Greater Noida. 1 year after landing the job, in 2013, his family arranged his marriage to Amrita Singh, who was from Mahoba. Amrita was not only beautiful, but also a postgraduate. After marrying Amrita, significant changes began to occur in Rupendra's life. Within a year, he became a father to a child, whom they named Ayushman. After Amrita entered his life, Rupendra quickly climbed the ladder of success and eventually reached the position of sales manager. About 3 years ago, he had purchased a Ford Figo car, and then 1 year ago, in May 2018, Rupendra bought a 2-bedroom flat in Galaxy North Avenue 2 for Rs 3.5 million. Thanks to his good salary, he had been able to purchase all these things by taking out loans. After buying the house, Rupendra spent around Rs 2 to 3 lakhs on interior designing work for his home. The interior work in Rupendra's flat was done by Omveer Singh, a resident of Mahari village in the Fatehpur district of Uttar Pradesh. Omveer lived in flat number E244 in Galaxy 2 Society along with his brother Krishna Var and 2 relatives. All of them were involved in interior designing in the Gore City Society, and he had designed the interiors of more than 20 flats in Galaxy 2 Society as well. When Rupendra learned during a conversation with Omveer that he was a Thakur, he decided to have the interior design work for his flat done by Omveer himself. After some time, while work was underway at Rupendra's house, a friendship developed between Omveer and Rupendra. Omveer was the eldest of 4 brothers. His younger brother, Krishna Var, worked with him, while the other 2 brothers stayed back in the village to farm. Omveer was educated and came from a good family. Once Omveer became friends with Rupendra, he began visiting Rupendra's house frequently. Rupendra would leave for his job every morning and return home in the evening, but since Omveer's work kept him mostly within Galaxy Society, he would visit Rupendra's house during his absence whenever he could. Because Omveer was a friend of Rupendra's, Amrita always treated him with the respect accorded to a family friend whenever he came by. At first, Omveer visited Rupendra's house only occasionally, but gradually Amrita's beauty captivated him, and soon he began coming over every day for several hours during Rupendra's absence. Initially, Omveer and Amrita interacted only formally, but as his visits became more frequent, their hesitations faded, and they started conversing openly. Amrita was attracted to bold, dynamic personalities like Omveer's, which is why she never minded any of his antics. This, in turn, emboldened Omveer further. Then one day, the barrier of propriety between them broke down, and a relationship blossomed that society would label as an illicit affair. Amrita became so enamored with Omveer's physique that their trysts became a regular affair. Rupendra was completely unaware of their covert relationship. As Amrita's physical needs were met, she gradually lost interest in her husband, with Omveer becoming everything to her. However, Omveer began to harbor ulterior motives. He thought that if he could also get hold of Rupendra's house along with Amrita, then in an industrial city like Noida, he could establish a big business. Therefore, he slowly began to sow the seeds of discord in Amrita's mind against Rupendra by ensnaring her with his slick words, and Omveer. In February 2019, Rupendra's aunt's daughter, Shika, came to stay at his house for 15 days. Shika wasn't as beautiful as Amrita, but she was simple and innocent. Seeing her, Omveer had the idea of marrying Shika to gain unrestricted access to Rupendra's house. When he discussed this with Amrita, she understood his plan. Amrita spoke to her husband about it, and Rupendra also felt that if a suitable boy from their own community, like Omveer, married his young cousin, it would be a good match. Omveer was earning decently, so Rupendra approached his aunt, who lived in Mahoba, with the proposal. She agreed, and by the last week of February, with the consent of both families, Omveer and Shika were married. A few days after the wedding, Shika moved in with her husband in Noida. They lived together in Galaxy 2 Society. Since their traditional wedding ritual Gauna was yet to be performed, Shika returned to her parental home after 10 days. However, during this time, Rupendra started suspecting something unusual in Amrita's behavior. He began to think that her relationship with Omveer had turned into something more than just familial ties. Though it was only a suspicion, the doubt started growing in his mind. One day, Rupendra asked Amrita to maintain distance from Omvir. The moment he said this, Amrita realized that Rupendra had started suspecting their relationship. She immediately informed Omvir, who also understood that if he wanted Amrita and her wealth, he needed to eliminate Rupendra. He told Amrita that this was the perfect time to get rid of him. Blinded by her love for Omvir, Amrita agreed to have her husband killed. Omvir assured her that if she provided some money, he would arrange for people to do the job. Amrita agreed and gave him money to hire contract killers. Following their plan, Amrita started maintaining distance from Omvir in public. If she had to communicate with him, she either called him or texted. Meanwhile, Rupendra was completely unaware that Omvir and Amrita were plotting his murder. To execute their plan, Omvir lured Sumit, a security guard from their society, with money. Sumit, originally from Badrang village in Hapur district, had been working as a guard in Galaxy 2 society for 2 years. He lived in a rented room in Haibatpur and had often told Omvir that he was looking for a way to earn big money to start his own business. Omvir then roped in another accomplice, Bule, from Bibi Nagar in Bulandshahr district. However, the two demanded 1 lakh to carry out the murder. Amrita agreed and in April sold her gold bangles and necklace to provide Omvir with 50,000 in advance. Omvir kept 10,000 for himself and gave 50,000 to Sumit and Bule, promising the remaining amount after the job was done. With the money, Sumit purchased a 22-bore country-made pistol and some bullets for 8,000 Bule. The murder had to be staged as a robbery. April 28, 2019 was a Sunday, and Rupendra had the day off. Omvir deliberately chose this day because he wanted to make it look like a robbery homicide. On his days off, Omvir frequently visited Rupendra's house. That day, he did the same. They sat together drinking tea when Amrita mentioned that the kitchen chimney was broken and needed to be replaced. Using this as a pretext, Rupendra left the flat around noon to buy a new chimney. Omvir accompanied him in the lift, but then turned back, telling Rupendra to wait for him outside while he fetched something from his flat. As soon as Rupendra walked toward the parking area, Omvir signaled Sumit and Bule, who were waiting outside the society. Omvir then collected the pistol from his flat and stepped outside. Rupendra, unaware of the conspiracy, waited for Omvir in his car. Omvir walked up to the car and signaled Sumit and Bule to come over. He introduced them as travelers needing a ride to Tigri Chowk and asked Rupendra to drop them off. Without suspecting anything, Rupendra agreed, and they all got into the car. As they drove on the relatively deserted service road toward Haibatpur, about 2.5 kilometers from their society, Omvir suddenly asked Rupendra to stop the car. When Rupendra stopped and turned to ask what was wrong, Omvir quickly pulled out the pistol from his waist and aimed it at his temple. Before Rupendra could react, Omvir pulled the trigger. The bullet hit Rupendra's head, and he collapsed onto the steering wheel, lifeless. To make it look like a robbery, they took Rupendra's wallet, watch, ring, and gold chain. Since it was a quiet afternoon, no one heard the gunshot, and there were no witnesses. The trio then dumped the pistol and remaining bullets in a nearby ditch and fled. Bule went back to his village, while Omvir and Sumit returned to the society. Sumit resumed his duty as a guard, and Omvir changed his blood-stained clothes at home. A few hours later, as per their plan, Amrita began her act. She told Omvir that they should claim Rupendra had left home with gold jewelry to mortgage at PC Jewelers in Ghaziabad. They created this false story, and Omvir even called Rupendra's neighbor Prashant, pretending to be worried. They started a fake search for Rupendra. Initially, the police believed it was a robbery. However, Bisraksho Manoj Pathak became suspicious when Amrita, upon reaching the crime scene, did not file a complaint. She kept insisting it was a robbery, but didn't show grief. The police then checked Amrita's call records. They discovered that Omvir had spoken to her at length around the time of the murder. CCTV footage from the society's exit gate showed that a few minutes after Rupendra left, Omvir and Sumit walked out with a third man. An hour and a half later, they returned together. The real turning point came when, on April 29th, someone withdrew 20,000 tais twice from Rupendra's bank account using his ATM card. When the withdrawal alert popped up on Rupendra's phone, which was now with the police, They traced the ATM and checked the CCTV footage. The footage showed Omveer withdrawing the money. This linked all the pieces together. The police arrested Omveer first. After intense questioning, he confessed. That same day, Sumit and Bule were also arrested. Sensing imminent arrest, Amrita tried to escape but was caught on May 4th. Following her arrest, the police interrogated Omveer again and retrieved the stolen jewelry from the jeweler where he had sold it for 1.5 lakh. Had the police treated the murder purely as a robbery case, Amrita and Omveer might have succeeded in their plan. However, their multiple mistakes helped the police connect the dots. Now Amrita, who was blinded by her love for Omveer, has lost both her husband and her lover. Her illicit affair cost her everything, leaving her with nothing but a ruined life behind bars.